you're not paying for the product, then you are the product. Welcome to CryptoBell-Live. I'm Jake Novak, and our guest today is Brittany Kaiser, the CEO of Alpha Compute. Brittany was one of the first people to explain that concept, and now you're doing more than just explaining it. You're running with a major business plan based on that principle.
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Brittany, tell us about Alpha Compute and how it's concerned for privacy. Now, that comment, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product, was coined 17 or 20 years ago about social media. But now we have AI to consider, which basically puts that concept on steroids. So explain this new business model for Alpha Compute that's really putting that at the center of what you're trying to do.
So Alpha Compute is focused on bringing large-scale AI compute, specifically confidential computing, to the world. And we're allowing encryption all the way down to the hardware level so that you can own your data from end to end using whatever AI infrastructure you'd like to. And that means that you are actually able to run the most sensitive data sets while still owning all of your IP, your copyright, your material non-public information for governments, confidential information and classified information. And this is something that most AI platforms don't allow you to do today, but you wouldn't know if you didn't read the terms and conditions.
Brittany, you, again, were I think the Diogenes of this movement, reminding people that your personal data is the commodity, and it has value not only in the private sector and the commercial markets, but politically, on a human rights level. How is AI, again, if you're not using Alpha Compute, how is AI threatening all of that at a new scale than we've seen in previously?
So your data is the most valuable asset on Earth. It was in 2017 when The Economist said that it had surpassed oil and gas in value. And now your data is bought and sold and traded around the world, mostly without your explicit consent, because you have used technology platforms that have taken that data and put it in millions of databases around the world. So your data now trades in a multi-trillion-dollar industry that you're not usually completely aware of. And now with AI, your data is being used to train models, and those models are algorithms in algorithms where you have no ability to ever get that data back, no right to delete. And so when you're starting to use AI in your daily business, in your daily life, all of that information starts to compound to really be everything from intellectual property to copyright to all of your dreams, your ideas, and a lot of sensitive data. So right now, using AI, it means you're making everything about your life vulnerable, from your family to your business. And the reason why we got into this space is because we don't believe that that's the way that technology should function. We should have control and data ownership, and privacy-centric AI should be accessible to the entire world.
Brittany, I want to ask you about your background. How did you get into this world? It's to just say someone's in tech right now is obviously too much of a generalization. You have a very specific and unique story about how you got into this space. So give us some of your favorite highlights, and then we'll scrutinize you devilishly.
I started getting into tech because I was very interested in political campaigning and human rights advocacy. I trained as a human rights lawyer, and I also worked on quite a number of presidential campaigns and other political campaigns where I was doing everything from social media to building the technology that allows you to do targeted messaging and public campaigning. And so I got further into tech by joining a company that you've probably heard of called Cambridge Analytica, where I eventually became a whistleblower. And I learned so much about data and how much it was worth, how much it was traded for, and how little control the producer of that data had once it started to get in databases and into the data trade. So through my whistleblowing process, and as a former human rights lawyer and human rights activist, I started to realize that we don't have a lot of data rights. When you use technology, you are giving up your ownership, you're giving up rights to transparency, permission structures, accountability of how that data is used, and if it's being monetized, you have no rights to that value. And that started to seem pretty unfair to me. So over the past decade, I've worked a lot on the legislative and regulatory architecture for you to own your data as a property right, for you to have protections as a human right, and in general to have data rights when you're using technology. That's something that's pretty new and has only developed over the past 8 to 10 years.
Let's talk a little bit more about why and how that data is valuable, because I think a lot of people misconstrue it as thinking, oh, they're going to get my credit card number, or they're going to find out secrets about me. All things aside, AI isn't going to figure out that I'm in my 50s and I like grilling and baseball. That's not the secret. The secret is where I am my phone numbers, where to contact me, again, my age and things like that. That's the value. Pollsters, anyone can take a poll and figure out who's in favor of what presidential candidate or other candidate. It's finding the person who is most representative of a particular district or a state. That's the value. And this is now on steroids because AI can create that accessibility. That's the real thing. It's not like it's finding any deep dark secret about us.
Yeah, I mean, I used to talk about this in data science, where I think a lot of people found it very difficult to understand why they wouldn't want targeted ads, and that's something that they actually wanted to see was more convenient for them. Now that we're getting into AI and people are using this from everything from personal therapy to create companies and to create all of their content and ideas and private documents, we're starting to get into much more dangerous territory. Because think of it, if you're an entrepreneur and you're creating your company, your startup, you're putting all of your ideas into this AI. All of those ideas are being ingested into an algorithm, and when other people are prompting this AI, they can be given those ideas as answers. And probably the platform that you're using, if you read the terms and conditions, you gave up the right to ownership of that data, you gave up the right to ownership of that content that you're producing. And once your company becomes popular, you might not even have rights to some of that intellectual property. And that is incredibly dangerous in today's world, that a lot of people don't understand what they're giving up for convenience.
Brittany, you famously called for the banning of the use of AI in political campaigns. Tell us about the dangers of that and how it bleeds over to the private sector. Are we talking about something similar to deceptive advertising, or are we talking about something that is just, again, it's just a breach of personal information, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, I think from a legal perspective, it is very similar to, false advertising. It's very similar to how a lot of media organizations are not allowed to use AI to create fake photos. Those types of standards are something that a lot of legislators and advocates have been trying to get into political campaigning. Even after I became a whistleblower in 2018, right after that, then Twitter, now X, and also, then Facebook, now Meta, started to implement tags on photo and video content to show that it had been edited. Now even you're seeing some that says this was created by AI. These types of tags are to help you become a more conscious consumer of digital content, so you know that something has been edited and you don't immediately take it at face value that what you're seeing is real. When you're in a political context and you're seeing politically targeted ads, I think this is even more sensitive, because politics tends to get very divisive, very emotional, and the way that political campaigning works is to target you with something that is meant to stir your emotions. And so if you're starting to show people fake content rapid fire, I mean, even back in 2016, we were able to do 10,000 different messages to people instead of a general 3 or 4 message campaign, to the youth and to, the men and to the workers and to the women. It was 10,000 different campaigns, right? And that was before real AI. Think about the amount of targeted messages today. Probably every single person is getting something different. And that can be very influential, that can be very powerful, either for the positive or the negative.
Brittany, is AI just another example of a tool that, depending on who's using it and how they're using it, can be incredibly positive or negative, like a hammer, a gun, nuclear power? How is Alpha Compute going to be pushing for the better use of this technology?
So, but the way that I really see it, because I am kind of a techno-utopian, and I know a lot of people don't like that terminology, but like the late, great Dr. Stephen Hawking used to say, we build technology so we can live in luxurious leisure, which means we're building technology to do the grunt work, so we can pursue our passions. And so I really believe that we're building technology to make the world a better place, to make our lives a better place. I think most people who have been using AI over the past 6 to 12 months can say their lives have drastically improved by being able to use those tools to make things happen better, faster. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity for us, but if every time we touch AI, we're giving away ownership of everything, all of our value that we produce as human beings, that's going to cause a lot more problems than it will solve. So at Alpha Compute, we are providing confidential computing, which is encryption all the way down to the hardware level, to the chip in the GPU, in the data center, so that it's impossible, mathematically impossible, for any third parties to get access to your data. It's 100% owned by you, meaning that all of your work, all of your value, all of your passion, everything that you are doing is 100% yours, or your company's, or your government departments. It doesn't belong to the CEO of a big tech company.
It sounds like a classic capitalist story. So many people continue to be misinformed about capital in the world, that they figure there's a pie that can't be expanded. What you just described sounds like a creation of new wealth, and you're putting it into the hands of the people who really own it right away without having them to go get it themselves. That's kind of interesting. Is that what you're pushing here? Just the idea that this is a new valuable thing that people own inherently, and you're securing it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I feel like it's the same conversation as decades ago when encryption started being introduced into technology, and a lot of encryption advocates would say, well, we need to be encrypting data to keep it safe, and then it started becoming a national security issue, and then encryption started being used all over the world. And then it's the reason why a lot of people from the blockchain and crypto space have been such big advocates for decentralized technologies, because it's an advanced forms of encryption that allow you to own all of your data and only share on a certain kind of permission structure with a smart contract that self-executes, and you have full control over all data transfers. Nothing can be taken from you without your consent. And now when we're talking about down to the hardware level encryption for confidential computing, this is something that Intel invented a couple years ago, and a lot of it has only really been used for military purposes, or by huge companies like Amazon and Alibaba, who are using it to secure global shipping. But it's not accessible, it's not affordable. Even the Department of Defense doesn't have access to enough of it to use confidential computing for all of their data workloads. So when we're running sensitive data through AI, making sure that confidential computing is available for our entire government, any company that wants it, individuals as well, is something that I'm so passionate about. Because once everyone has access to privacy-centric AI, then people can use AI safely.
All right, we're talking about a public company, though, Alpha Compute. It's traded on the NASDAQ. Where do you see the value here for investors? I think you've pretty much laid out as a customer or someone who might be working with your company, but as an investor, where's the value here, and what do you see as your potential growth trajectory?
So right now, computing, especially AI infrastructure building, is one of the most well understood businesses in the public markets. You buy computers, you have long-term power contracts with data centers, you have managed services that are making sure those machines are near 100% uptime, and then you have clients that are licensing that compute power. Everyone from government to regular companies to frontier AI companies and even individuals have the ability to license compute from us. The demand for this is growing nearly 60% year on year. According to NVIDIA's last financial releases, that's their demand for chips. We are buying NVIDIA chips, getting those online, making them available on confidential computing, which is an encryption process with the firmware. And then we make that available to people in a way that has never been accessible before. This, as I said, has mostly been available to military or the world's largest companies only, and even those organizations don't have enough of it. So we want to make this accessible, we want to make it affordable, but right now it's definitely coming in at a premium.
Is it time for the investor community? I mean, it seems to me, despite the massive amount of money they're throwing at it, it seems to me they're still being kind of cautious. It looks like they're very much focused on a company like NVIDIA, the chips. It reminds me of the old joke about what inspired Bill Gates to start Microsoft. I bought this first personal computer and I loved it until I tried to use it to do something. So it's great to have the chips. It's great to have the power behind it, these power cells, the modular nuclear reactors that are being built. But people need to start making that next step now, don't they? And actually do something with AI. And Wall Street needs to start making bigger investments in the functionality of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I believe that if you're an investor that's looking at the AI landscape, it's good to understand the entire up and downstream of the entire industry, which is, of course, there's the chip manufacturing from TSMC to Intel and NVIDIA, and then it goes into servers that are either made by Supermicro, mostly Supermicro, also Dell, Lenovo, and then those servers are shipped to a data center. There's big data center companies like Equinix. Those huge data center companies are running those computers And then there's a client on the other side. The client is licensing the compute power. And when you are doing confidential computing, you're not just licensing compute from any of your GPUs. It's specific computers that you are giving people access to where they have the end-to-end encryption. And you can mathematically prove that nobody gets access to their data. And those clients are paying every single hour, or they're paying by the month or by the year. Most of our clients at the moment are paying years in advance to get access to this compute power. It's very hard to get a hold of. It's very hard to get a hold of it at scale, and it's the most in-demand asset on planet Earth besides data itself.
Okay, let's not bury the really good news, because you alluded to it earlier, this talk about how we use the Stephen Hawking quote, we use technology. What are some of the, I mean, have at it, Brittany. What are some of the utopian things that specifically that you like to think could be the result of all this? Like, am I going to get a really good pizza baked for me at the snap of my fingers, or something even better than that? What are some of the things that just you daydream about that are within reach in the best of all worlds?
So, as a former, human rights lawyer and human rights advocate, I would say the hardest human right to provide to everyone are basic human rights, which is access to food and clean water. Most governments around the world haven't figured even that one out, let alone going any further. Now, it doesn't cost that much money to give everybody food and clean water, but it's still something that mostly has to be solved by humanitarian missions, United Nations, NGOs, CBOs, and if everyone was given the amount of money that their data makes every day, or even just a portion of that, they'd be able to buy their groceries with their data money. It might be a couple dollars a day, might not mean a lot to you and me, but to the 2 billion people around the world that live on less than $2 a day, it's completely life-changing. So for me, the daydream that I always have, which is starting to become a reality, is that when you have an AI system that's able to secure your data and license it out, where you're getting a piece of the licensing, you will earn enough money every day to not just get access to food and clean water, but be able to buy groceries with it. There are certain entire countries that are starting to implement this. It's getting to be a popular idea in the United States. There are multiple states that are starting to experiment with this. And I think that is, the big moonshot goal, is that everybody through AI would be able to have enough nearly passive income that they'd be able to take care of themselves and their family on the most basic level. And then we start to look at what can it do in healthcare, being able to create, better medicines, more access to data. Most of the data for creating medicines is men in college that go, that go for, to get extra beer money, 18 to 35-year-old young white men in U.S. colleges, right? So medicines don't work as well on women and minorities. This can be solved with AI actually being able to contribute more people's data into algorithms that then go into research that create treatments and medicine. So on the medicine and healthcare side, it's going to be completely life-changing, and it already is. We can see in a lot of oncology research that this is already starting to completely break boundaries. So I don't think there's anything in our life that AI can't improve, if we make sure that it doesn't become a giant opportunity for data breaches or the inability for anyone to ever patent or copyright or have IP on something ever again.
Yeah, so Brittany just wants to cure world hunger and cancer. No big deal, no big deal. All kidding aside though, tell us a little bit more about the securing of data ownership. I mean, is this going to be, in a practical matter, is this going to be one of those things where something pops up in my email where I don't read all the terms and conditions and I sign it away anyway? Or, I mean, really, is that how it's going to start to be implemented? How I'm going to start to know that I have control over my data and things like that?
I think the way that it's already starting is if you are currently able to use confidential computing, you can be using all of your technology platforms, especially frontier AI models, while knowing that you still retain the complete ability to copyright or patent or have any kind of IP over what you're using AI to create. I think that is the most basic way that everybody can understand, because anyone that has their own business is using AI for their company. And so to be able to own everything in your company and make sure that your IP, patent, copyright is going to stand up in court is the most tangible way for everybody to understand. But of course, as we move into the future where all of the data that you or your company or even your government department are producing is able to enter into contracts where you can say, hey, I'm okay to license my data for the next 12 months for these purposes, for medical research or for, commercial advertising, but I don't want to license it for political campaigns. As an example, you would be able to do that, and then you would get a piece of all of the money that's being used to monetize your data. And so those systems already exist. It's being implemented nationally in a number of countries this year, and in multiple states in the U.S. So definitely watch that space.
I think what a lot of people who are viewing CryptoBell content live understand is, for example, you were talking about NGOs and the groups that are trying to help people with water and food and things like that. And not to disparage them in any single way, but the cold hard facts are is that capitalism is what has brought more people out of poverty than any other engine of that. And here we are talking about a capitalist enterprise here to fast track that. This is the kind of thing that will get people to do things not only to secure the data and to give people the value of their data, but can we talk a little bit about all the ancillary great things that will come out of this? For example, I alluded to it before. This could solve some of our power grid problems. I mean, for years, people like me have been pounding the table. We need a better power grid. Now, big tech wants small nuclear reactors, and suddenly we're getting it. Fine by me. I mean, and would you agree that one of the best ways for AI companies to win over the public is to say, hey, listen, if we get this nuclear reactor for our data center, the other power will be free to the municipality that surrounds us. Things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's some of the way that we also see confidential computing, where right now it commands a huge premium because there's not enough of it available. There's not that many engineers that even have the ability to do this level of encryption and that have permission from Intel or NVIDIA or Supermicro or Dell to do this to the computers and not disrupt the warranty. So being able to right now charge a premium, and there will still be a lot of industries that will still pay a premium, is great, but eventually we would like it to be at a discount so that people have a choice of paying more to give away all their data or paying slightly less but with privacy. Even at the same time, I don't think enough people really understand what privacy is or what data ownership is in order to say if they're the same price, you're going to choose privacy instead. So if we can eventually make it such large scale where it is adopted all around the world and accessible to everybody, then if it's slightly less, then everybody chooses privacy because they're just choosing the cheaper option anyway. And it starts to become more like a utility where you would expect HIPAA compliance for your data. If you use confidential computing, it's HIPAA compliant immediately because it's not possible for it to be shared with third parties. So it's examples like that where you can see that there are entire industries that will easily be fully adopting this. Healthcare, government work, anything that you're using to create for your company, especially public companies, any material non-public information, of course you want to be on confidential computing. And so I do see that eventually this will be a legislative and regulatory issue where they will say, well, why would we be using old school databases that don't have this level of encryption? If you're going to be running AI or running anybody's data, it needs to be encrypted to this level, otherwise it's a risk.
Yeah. You mentioned the word legislative, and I have to ask you because a tremendous amount of your life now already has been working in tandem or working with government entities. They're going to be watching it like a hawk, or at least trying to, based on what they understand. Are you prepared for that kind of relationship with not only government agencies, but the ever-changing list of people who are our elected leaders who may come in with more experience or less depending on how the polls go?
Well, I've worked for the Democrats, I've worked for the Republicans, I've worked for independent candidates from Obama to Trump to Kennedy. So I'm not here to be, politically divisive or to say this is a red or a blue or a center issue. This is an issue for everyone. And it's a national security issue to make sure, especially in this country, that Americans' data is not in third-party databases all around the world where it can get into the hands of people who may not have our best interests at heart. So for me, I believe that confidential computing is something that should be an imperative of our government and by any company that's touching sensitive data or individual data. And certainly government data sets should not be shared into third-party databases when some of those databases are not even on American soil.
Do you think that the influence operations on social media have been successful in perpetuating and making even worse the divisions in this country?
I think they have always been that way. Unfortunately, the way that algorithms normally function is to show you more of what you like. And therefore, it reinforces your own ideas to the point where you don't even see other people's ideas or thoughts or stories that you don't agree with unless they are there to make you angry. Because if you are shown something that makes you upset, something that triggers your neuroticism, then you're more likely to go down that rabbit hole and spend more time on that platform. Which is why I've always felt that the amount of data that you share with social media companies is dangerous to your mental health. And especially for children. As someone who has successfully won lawsuits and testified against a lot of big social media companies and big data companies, from Facebook to Equifax, and won at the Supreme Court level, I believe that it's very important for everyone to really understand what it means to own and control your data so that other people aren't using your data to control you.
Do you have a model for your company? I mean, are you looking to be the Microsoft of AI privacy compute? I mean, is it just completely out of whole cloth? You're not looking to sort of emulate a particular trajectory?
I would say the most comparable companies to us are like a CoreWeave and Nebius that are providing AI infrastructure and then the software for people to easily access that AI infrastructure and compute power. So if you want to run AI instead of going to, a chat GPT or a Claude and licensing it on a monthly or annual basis, you can come to a platform like ours and you can choose to run an open source model on confidential computing. And so those are the choices that people are given, whether you want to give everything away to OpenAI and Anthropic, or whether you want to use any choice of open source model and run that where you own 100% of the data. And that's the choice that people are going to be making. And I believe a lot of industries, based on the incredible demand that we have from clients around the world that are out the door and around the corner, I believe this demand is going to cause us to grow very quickly.
Lastly, Brittany, tell us a little bit about your team. I mean, obviously this isn't a factory in Detroit with a huge assembly line, and you don't have 17 floors in an office building. But tell us a little bit about your team, how you've assembled it, and how it's going. I mean, it's still, no matter how new the technology is, it's a quintessential American story. You're creating a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have had the luck and the joy to work with some incredible folks. Some of them I've known for 10, 15, 20 years. And so we've really assembled an all-star team that has a lot of top strategists, a lot of top financial engineering and investment experts that have run hedge funds, digital asset funds, technology investment funds, VCs. And so we've really been looking at what are all of the opportunities in this space and how do we most easily take advantage of that. And now we've been able to undertake successful M&A acquisitions of really interesting companies that sit on top of the AI compute and take advantage of us being a vertically integrated company. We also have incredible creatives who have just helped us with our beautiful rebrand, which we're very excited about. And we're creating everything from our own studio, our own internal investment thesis, and all of that is based on us being able to fully own the most valuable asset on earth besides data, which right now is NVIDIA GPUs, which power everything that we do from the hardware level to the software level. And being a vertically integrated company means that we have also, economies of scale at each level. Instead of continually bringing in third parties for different parts of the technology stack, we're able to provide all of it for ourselves and our clients, our customers, and of course our shareholders.
Brittany Kaiser, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on and letting our audience know all this important information.
Thank you so much for having me. A pleasure.
This is CryptoBell-Live, where you get all the cutting edge information on big tech and investing and how it affects your portfolio.